Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our CEO update. Realize it's bright and early, so appreciate you joining us at this hour. So Mark's going to share a brief update, and he'll be joined by two of our wonderful caregivers here at Intermountain, Jen and Kent. And following that, we'll have about 25 to 30 minutes, so a lot of time for questions, and really welcome those. As ever, please submit through Slido. You'll see instructions on the screen. We'll take as many questions as we can, and really, please give us your full name. We won't take questions without a name. We'd love to hear also not just your questions, and by the way, anything goes. Mark is excited to answer questions on any topic. Please don't hold back. But also share what you're excited for. Here we are getting into a momentous year for Intermountain. We'd love to hear what you are excited for in the year ahead. As you see questions come up through Slido, and please submit your own, but go ahead and give thumbs up or thumbs down to the questions you see. As you know, that can push them up, make sure that they get asked, or push them down if you think they're less important, at least today. One quick note, obviously we've announced the leadership team and a number of things around the SCL Health merger as we move forward. The ELT and region presidents are working through a lot of the details right now. And in fact, the integration team kicks off in about a week, and we will continue to provide timely information and involve you, give time for questions and discussion as we go between now and our open close rather. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark. Please, Mark, go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Kevin. And I appreciate everyone who's taken the time to tune in, and people who are going to watch asynchronously as well. I'm really thrilled this morning. I love interacting with all of you. I like answering your questions. I like telling you what's going on here at Intermountain, and more broadly as well. And I love you fill my bucket. Your input means an awful lot to me. To that end, I am really excited that in a few minutes we'll visit with Kent and Jen. Just feeling their energy this morning makes me feel really good about where we are. I have been out and about quite a bit recently. I've been in Utah Valley and Spanish Fork, been in Central Lab. I've been down at the supply chain over the last couple weeks. And what I'm seeing and hearing and feeling makes me prouder than I've ever been. So these are extraordinary times, and they're not times that any of us would wish for. But what I'm seeing and hearing is energy and expertise and creativity and innovation in service to others. And I can't think of anything that we're more meant to do. This is who we are. I also am fully aware that things are hard. I heard a lot about staffing challenges, and I know that people are tired, and I know that people fear and feel burnout at times. I want you to know that we're bringing every resource that we can to bear, whether it's travelers or flex work schedules, or Sue Roble shared with me the other day that we've made about 25 changes in compensation and benefits based on what we've heard from all of you. So please keep speaking with us. We're seeing you, we're hearing you, we want to serve you so that we together can serve our communities. The other thing that I'm absolutely enthused about is in these most recent roundings, more than I ever have before, I'm seeing outstanding local leadership. We know that real leadership occurs as close to the front line as possible. And I'm seeing people owning their mission. I'm seeing people supporting their caregivers and colleagues and staying true to the larger One Intermountain work that we do together. That's how we move fast. That's how we stay nimble. That's how we do good for people who are trusting us. The other thing that I'm hearing remarkable is walls internally are coming down, and geographies are becoming blurred in all the best possible ways. We see people who are floating to other hospitals or other clinics in a time when a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, people wouldn't even have moved a floor and felt comfortable. So I think people are discovering their own capability and their generosity, and I just love that. In addition to floating and bonuses and all the other things that we've done, I'm really, really proud that we are investing in all of you now and into the future through educational benefits. I don't know about you, but in our family, we think that education is the single greatest investment that you can make. And the fact that through our PEAK program, in partnership with InStride, each and every one of you can get educated to the tune of $5,000 a year. So you can get your GED, you can learn to speak Spanish, you can get a nursing certification, you can get an undergraduate degree. This is great for you. It's great for your family's future. And I think in the end, it'll also be good for Intermountain and our communities as well. There's no downside to improving one's education. So I guess the one other thing I'd like to say is please keep your eye on the ball. There are a lot of distractions when you read the news or watch the 24-hour news cycle. Look around you for the human good that's all around you. You'll see generosity and thoughtfulness, and you're going to hear a couple of stories about that in just a little bit. That's the real reality. So as Kevin said, our merger with SCL Health is very much on track. We are planning an April 1st close. It is absolutely imperative that we function independently of them until April 1st. And so please do not reach out to your colleagues. They'll be eager to meet you as well. But let's wait until April 1 unless the integration team asks you to weigh in. And we are going to be asking lots of people for their input about how to do things. There are a couple of other things that I'm really excited about. I'm thrilled that COVID, as miserable as some of this experience has been, we haven't slowed down a bit. And in fact, our digital transformation continues to accelerate. I'm excited for new leadership that we're seeing, like at Select Health and like at our supply chain. New ideas and innovations keep pouring in from all of you. Please keep doing that. It's allowing us to serve better. We did our 5,000th solid organ transplant this year. That's a remarkable achievement with the third record year in a row. Select Health busted through 1 million members. Incredible. We are truly serving people. And, I hope that you balance yourself. I guess that's maybe the final thing that I'll say before we go over to talk with Jen and Kent. You need to be whole human beings. So I want you to take time. I know we're really busy. Please work with your supervisors to get a breather. I hope you take care of yourself. I hope you try and eat well, and I hope you try and sleep well, and I hope you try and exercise. I hope you pay attention to your family. We want you as an Intermountain caregiver, a colleague, a friend, a neighbor for a long time. And if you see somebody around you who's struggling, I hope you'll reach out, and I hope you'll send up a flare so that we can help them, because we have a lot of services to help people. But we can't do that if we don't know what's going on. So with those things said, I'm going to introduce a couple of our caregivers, and they're going to lead off on the Q&A that Kevin's going to run. So we'll start with Jennifer Nielsen. Jen, can you introduce yourself to the team? And I'm sure this embarrasses you a little bit, but our colleagues have praised your relentless focus on consumers/patients. I'd love to hear your perspective and your connection to mission, which is exemplary. Want to know what you're excited about this year, and do you have a question for me, Jen? So over to you, please.
Thank you. Yes. So my name's Jennifer Nielsen, and I'm the Senior Practice Manager at Intermountain Women's Health Specialists, High Risk OB, Maternal Fetal Medicine, and St. George Neonatology. And what a privilege. Some of the successes of our team that we've experienced have been understood in this pandemic. And I've found that through this trial of having the pandemic, it has brought us so many gifts. Like, we have really had to dig deep in how we're showing up every day to our patients, to each other, and holding each other accountable to what we've committed to do. And I'm just super grateful for the team that I have here, all collaborating together. We've had a lot of change within our physical locations in the last few years. And I've been surrounded by incredible leaders who have been able to inspire me to see things in myself and then share those gifts with my other colleagues and helping them see that in them. And so I wanted to tout a few of the successes that we've had in our space and in our groups. We've really been focused on continuing to be patient-centered with a team approach and having that growth mindset. So focusing on patient safety and quality and their experience have been really on the forefront. And knowing that if deep inside we can get ourselves right, we can show up really well for our patients and each other. And so our safety outcomes for 2021 were just amazing for all three of my teams. We set some goals for making sure we were consistently measuring medication scanning, and we were watching how often we were reporting our safety events. And for the three teams down here in the clinics, we've had 0 never events throughout the year. And out of the 24 safety events that we did log, 100% of them were self-reported. So I'm just super proud of my team for showing up in putting safety as a priority for our patients. There's so many things I really would love to share about each individual clinic and practice.
So Jen, before you ask your question, let me just congratulate you. What you're displaying is real leadership. If what you said to your team is, hey, there are people in Salt Lake who really have no idea what the heck we're doing, who are telling us to log more safety events, and I know you really don't want to do it, but you got to do it because I'm getting held accountable and I just can't stand it. I guarantee you would have had completely different results for your patients and for your caregivers than what you've described. The fact that you own this, that you're all in, you're both supporting and facilitating as well as holding accountable in that excellent balance, that's the secret sauce. That's exactly why it's so important for us to invest in people like you so that you have the skills. So incredibly well said, and congratulations. Do you have a question for me?
I do. Coming from that space of, well, we have an obligation to do these things, becoming like a checklist, feeling very different from, I'm moving from inspiration here from a deeper place. Amidst all this uncertainty, fear, and anxiety and overwhelm in the world, relating to just fulfilling my inner purpose of empowered living, I've had to dig really deep on many levels just for the courage to show up with confidence and vulnerability with my teams. And some days I do not show up well. Others, I can step away and feel like I can sleep that night because of how I was present. So with the challenges that I know you've experienced in your life, the responsibilities you hold, and all of the uncertainty and combative nature of just where we're living right now in the world, what I'd like to know is, as a leader, how do you source that inspiration or motivation to show up with courage and strength and grace throughout this pandemic in your life? Is it related to an inner purpose that you have, or,
Well, you're very kind. You're implying that I mostly do that, and I will tell you, and Kevin will tell you, and Mary Carol will tell you that that I'm deeply imperfect because I'm a human being. I think that it's a function of living intentionally, Jen. And look, I just have had it's been a kind of crazy couple years in a lot of ways. at work, but also at home with some of these health challenges that I've been very public about. And I'm doing great, and I feel really well, and my labs look good. But I'll tell you, I do not take any day for granted. And I try not to waste a day, and I try really hard not to have a grumpy day. Doesn't mean I don't have a grumpy minute within the day, but I try and have fun. I try and experience my family. I try and enjoy our work, and I try and make sure that the work we do is really impactful. And I've got a good friend named Chris Chen, who's an interventional cardiologist, and he started a company called ChenMed that takes care of mostly poor, vulnerable, elderly patients in a direct primary care model. And when I was skiing with Chris last year and sitting on the lift, I was asking him where his motivation comes from, because I admire him. And he said, I want to speak for the people who can't speak for themselves. And I think that in healthcare, I couldn't say it any better than that, right? If each of us tries to do that a little bit every day, there are 43,000 of us, and there seem to be 60,000 of us. That's a lot of good, Jen. And so I thank you for what you're doing, and thanks for your nice question. And hope to see you soon in St. George or up here in Salt Lake. So Kent Evanson, over to you. You've got an incredible story to tell, and one that, to be quite honest, brought tears to my eyes. And when I asked you about it, you're like, hey, that's just what people do. And I think I said, that's what people should do, but not everybody does it. So Kent, would you talk a little bit about yourself and where you work and what you're excited about? And if you'd be kind enough to tell your story, I'd really appreciate it. I think people would benefit from it.
Okay, I'm Ken Evanson. I'm a full-time application system technical analyst for the CTIS team, and I work with Scott Tesh on the lab. And I also have a part-time job where I'm a microbiology supervisor here at the Kasia Intermountain Hospital, so I kind of help with that. About 2 years ago, I had a coworker who was a Nepalese background, and he was working on an H-1B visa, and he had worked for several years and was a critical piece to our team. And then we had some people leaving the system because of early retirement. Some of those took those things, and anyway, we're a 24/7 full operation laboratory, and we do microbiology and blood bank here. So we're on the outskirts of real work that happens. We can't necessarily, because of our distance, send everything to the central lab. But anyway, we had reduced our staff, which was about 6 people, because the ones we had lost, down to 5, and that was really traumatic for us. So what I had done is Ganesh had been a former student, and I had mentored him. And he had approached me and my wife if we would house his pregnant wife and son while he had to return to Nepal to secure his visa back to the United States. Well, COVID happened in the middle of that. He couldn't get interviews, even if he wanted, at an embassy in Nepal. And so, because of a lot of things, his stay extended into 8 months. His wife had hoped that maybe he would return home before the delivery of their daughter, and unfortunately, she had the baby on the September 14th, and then he returned back just after Thanksgiving. So it was hard, but I'm not the only one that helped out here. You're talking. Here's a functioning laboratory who's operating at a low level, of employees. And then there were people who housed all of his earthly possessions because they had to shut down their apartment. And then, I have to give credit to my wife, who entertained an active 2-year-old for almost 8 months there. So that's kind of what we do. So I'm really not the hero in this story. So there you go.
Well, I think your service heart really shows through, Kent, and kudos to your wife. I understand that she actually went to the delivery with this woman.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And are we fortunate enough to have Ganesh back at Intermountain now?
He returned in November and has gone back to work here in our laboratory. So he's back. Thanks to the people who, the attorneys that helped him here at Intermountain, that helped secure the visa, and he's working in our lab. We're glad to have him back.
Well, hey, look. Thank you. Thanks for being you. And I know this is you're a really low key guy. Pretty extraordinary stuff. I mean, to take care of a family for 8 months, and it does take a village. So thanks, Kent. Anything you want to share before we go over to questions in terms of what you're excited about this year?
I was just curious about what is Intermountain actually doing to help people like Ganesh. And, I'm hearing stories of Central Laboratory calling for resources, right and left. I'm, as a microbiologist and as a technologist, I worry about job and I worry about what are we doing to mitigate this. I know we're in uncertain territory, and it's not usually this way, but still, what are we doing?
So, Kent, we're doing the best we can is what we're doing. And I was down at the lab last week, and we were well staffed for 2,000 samples a day, COVID samples a day. Nobody predicted Omicron across the world. We got 11,000 samples the day I was there. So what do? I saw supervisors pipetting, and I saw pathologists who had come in to help, and we're sorting samples, and we're working alongside elbow to elbow with techs. We're doing the very best we can. I saw our CTIS colleagues head down to the central lab, and there was a piece of equipment that would do 1,500 samples in an automated fashion a day that needed expedited connectivity to the network, and it was activated in just a couple of days. So we're going to just keep adapting and overcoming and using our creativity, and more importantly, we need to use our humanity to support each other. This, I hope, is an unprecedented experience, Kent, and I'm just feel fortunate that we have the kind of people like you who work at Intermountain, and like Jen, who are trying their best, and we're all trying our best. And I'm very glad that we're careful with our resources so that we have money to spend on things, which a lot of folks are in a terrible situation and they don't have money. And that is a bad place to be. So that's your answer. I wish I had a silver bullet, but we don't. So Kevin, I think, and Kent and Jennifer, thanks. What a pleasure. But I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of all of your fellow caregivers. Kevin, how about over to you, and let's try some questions and answers.
Yeah, Mark, just to add my thanks, Kent and Jen. Phenomenal stories, wonderful leadership, making such a difference. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So Mark, before I jump in, 2 quick disclaimers. 1, I'll apologize in advance if I do mispronounce your name. I'll do my best. And then 2, we're getting a lot of questions, Mark, on quite specific things around the merger. So clearly, as I said at the beginning, we'll continue to update everyone as we get into those specific pieces of work. So Mark, some of those you may only be able to answer at a high level today. So We've had a ton of questions. We've had a ton of thumbs up and thumbs down. It's been like watching the opening sequence of The Matrix as questions kind of rise and tumble down the screen. So let's jump in. Mark, strap yourself in and we'll get going. So Mark, did you want to say something before I kick off? Okay, so then without further ado, so Joe Hales is currently top of the charts. And Joe asks a really important question, actually, around COVID. So Joe says, the Utah state legislators' resistance to mask mandates is frustrating. Is there more either together with other systems or organizations or alone we could be doing to address this?
So it's a great question, and I'm going to hit a theme here for you. I'm not a politician, and Intermountain is not a political institution. We support our politicians. I support I'm a proud American. I believe in democracy. Does not mean I'm always completely aligned or Intermountain's aligned with some of the political activity, but it's what makes our country great. We are going to continue to be strong advocates for science and public health. We have been all the way through. We've also tried to provide people with maximum choice, recognizing people's liberties at the same time. So expect us to continue to do that. And I think you have seen me in the media tell hard, plain truths that quite frankly, not everybody liked. And as the opportunities arise, I will politely, civilly continue to do that on behalf of you and our patients.
Mark, thank you for the candor and the braveness that I think we've all tried to, and doing the right thing, display throughout the pandemic. So another question, and this pivots to the merger, Mark, from Rochelle Rhodes. And Rochelle asks, help us understand your vision, probably at a high level here, Mark, of the role of clinical programs and operating lanes as we move towards the merger with SCL.
So I'm going to take this at a high level because the work around integration is going to kick off on January the 27th with teams from both Intermountain and SCL Health. I want to be really clear. This is a merger. This is not an acquisition. And just yesterday, Kevin and my current team and SCL Health and their current team, we started to come together into one team. We did some really wonderful, hard, thoughtful, candid, and in the end, very productive work around understanding each other and talking about how we were going to work together. And what I would suggest you think about is you're now going to have hundreds and thousands of new colleagues who are doing meaningful and thoughtful work. The SCL Health's quality scores are superb. They have a dedication to the poor and the vulnerable that's commensurate with ours. In essence, these are really good people, and they do really good medicine. We've got some things to learn from them. And brand new geographies to explore. As soon as it's okay from an FTC standpoint, we will do that. I would think about how we're going to come together to jointly create best practices and hold each other accountable and drive superb outcomes in safety and quality and patient experience together. But do not expect a hierarchical relationship.
Mark, thank you. And Rochelle, again, we're committed to sharing more as we go through the process Mark just highlighted. So another really topical question. This is from Stuart Simpson, who recognizing what we're all, I think, realizing and suffering from, the inflation going on in our country. Yes. How does Intermountain plan to help its patients and employees in light of record inflation?
So boy, if you had turned back the clock a year ago, who would have thought we would be facing this headwind? I think we'd had an earthquake and we had a pandemic. I had a little dose of cancer. I mean, this is now we got inflation, and we'll do what responsible people do. Is we're going to be careful with our resources. We're going to continue to be as proactive as possible in meeting the needs of our caregivers. So we will remain competitive in the market in terms of what we pay people and the benefits. And again, I'm going to really try and emphasize things that are good in the long run, as well as day-to-day improvements in pay. So I'll be a little personal here for a second. Our 24-year-old works as an AmeriCorps volunteer in a free clinic for Spanish-speaking people up in Summit County. She really loves her job. It pays almost nothing. And Mary Carol and I help her a bit, but she works as a critical care tech in the Park City emergency department. And this weekend she's working 3 shifts. And she's doing it she's working, she doesn't normally work Fridays because her clinic is closed. She's going to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 12 hours a day. And she's picking up that time, because they're short-staffed because of COVID, and she's loyal to her patients and to her colleagues. And second is she can make a lot of money, and she can sock that away for school and other things. And so for the first time ever as a father, instead of saying, hey, do you think you should work a little harder? I'm actually saying, boy, are you taking care of yourself? Are you working too hard? And it's a balance. As far as our patients go, we have been really good about having affordable healthcare at Intermountain. Are we perfect? Does anybody think we're cheap enough? Absolutely not. We're going to have to be really careful with cost control so that we don't, like most other systems, have to jack prices way up and have care become yet more unaffordable. So watch us try and be as responsible around how we spend money. So we're going to spend it on the important things like people, but we're also going to be really careful about what we do.
Mark, thank you. So Robert Salmon is looking for a peek around the corner, and Robert asks, are there any other mergers or acquisitions that are in the pipeworks that can be discussed at this time?
So the pipeline's full. We are having systems and hospitals come out of the woodwork because of the work that all of you are doing. So we are perceived and accurately as being the most innovative health system in the country. You may think we're clunky. We look agile compared to the rest of legacy healthcare systems. The investments that Kevin and his team and many others have made in beginning to create a digital infrastructure are very appealing to others who actually don't have the resources or expertise to do that. So there are lots of folks who want to join us. And more will happen. We do not have anything around the corner that is of the size of SCL Health, but there are other things that are around the corner. Why do we do this? We do this because our model serves people well, and we're in the service business. So people deserve high quality, affordable health care. They deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and have that happen without regard for their ability to pay. And we are uniquely positioned to do that in a number of markets, and we're going to keep doing it. The other thing is growth is good for all of you. More opportunities for smart colleagues, more new ideas, more ability for us to make large investments and spread it across a larger base so that you've got the best tools to work with. So yes, we're going to keep doing this. And I think all of you should hold your head high. What you're doing, people want around the country and around the world. I was on the phone with the leadership of the National Health Service in England earlier this week, and they certainly didn't want to talk to me because I'm funny or smart or good looking. They wanted to talk to me because of all the work that all of you are doing, and that we have demonstrable results for how to take care of people right. And that's coming from the national health system that has the best public health outcomes of any country in the world. They want to learn from you.
Mark, thank you. And I'll just say we've got about another 15 minutes of questions. We've got a lot of questions. Please keep them coming. Please keep them thumbing up or down, because that's really helping us get to the most prescient ones. So Mark, travel nursing. Kim Rowett asks, why not support current caregivers, exempt or not, in picking up extra shifts and receiving that extra compensation that I guess the implication being is going to travel nurses right now?
So look, it's a yes and thing. We have shift differentials, and we've got incentives to work extra shifts. We also don't want to run people into the ground too. So it's a balance. So this is an extraordinary situation. We are pulling every lever. And like I said, we've had 25 changes in compensation and benefits for nurses in the last year based on what you all are telling us. Keep talking to us. We'll keep changing. And I guarantee you that any decision we make isn't going to make every single person happy. But I do know that our kid is going to make triple what she normally works this weekend in the Park City ED. And she has surrounded by colleagues who are all signing up for the same shifts for the same reasons. And we need travel nurses. In the long run, is that part of our strategy? Absolutely not. The internal float pool and is actually the way we're going to go. But right now, we're bailing as fast as we can, and we're going to use every tool in our toolbox to keep people safe, especially our caregivers.
Mark, thank you. And as ever, as you said, it is a question of both and. There's a question from Dan Simmons in a similar vein.
Yeah.
So Dan asks, can we talk about briefly incentive pay or bonuses for local leaders who are spending 14 plus hours a day so that we can find a way to compensate them for their sacrifice?
So look, I'm not the right person to talk to about what's happening in your local. So that's what you have local leaders for. And I'm going to refer that question to the region president. If it's Nevada, it'll go to Paul Krakovis. If it's Utah, Idaho, it goes to Sue Roble. And they have a lot of latitude to make the changes they need to make in concert with the system as a whole. But I hope nobody feels like we're being stingy, because we're using every tool at our disposal, and whether it's meals for people to take home or lunches to buy for them, or $150 to make sure that every single caregiver can afford to have Christmas dinner in an inflationary period. We're trying to think of everything we possibly can, and we need your feedback. So thank you for the question. I'm going to leave it to local and regional leadership to figure out what the right thing to do is, and I will support them.
Mark, thank you for that. So let's pivot back to the pandemic. And this, of course, is something we're dealing with every day. This question is really about hindsight, of course, being 2020. What mistakes have we seen we've made during the pandemic, and how will that change our response, both to the continuance, but also similar situations in the future?
So I'm not sure. I'm hesitant to say mistakes. Look, day by day, we've been imperfect. Did we ramp up our testing as fast as we absolutely could have in retrospect? We're much more capable now. How did we do our vaccine rollout? Was it perfect? Probably not, but it was pretty darn good. I'm actually really proud of a lot of things, like how quickly we adopted novel therapies and distributed rare drugs, and our contribution to the state. I think probably my lesson learned is be on our front foot and try and be as proactive as possible, and then be courageous. I got an unbelievable load of nasty notes about the most recent change in visitation policy. And somebody on my own team, and wasn't nasty at all, but said just had a grandbaby, and it was hard to visit his daughter and their new grandchild. But again, extraordinary circumstances, hospitals overflowing, at times 20% of people out sick with COVID. We are doing the best we can. And I think my lesson is stay agile, stay on our front foot. Don't get into a place where we aren't flexible about changing our mind as the situation changes. And then communicate as best we can the rationale, the context for why we're doing what we're doing.
Thanks, Mark. And I think in my rush to get to the prior question, I omitted Jeremiah Clausen's name. Jeremiah, thank you for that question.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Good.
So fast and furious action questions moving up and down. So currently top is Wendy Kelly, and Wendy has a question about the merger. So sure. SCL Health uses the Epic EMR. Intermountain, of course, uses Icentra, Cerner. Do we have plans to continue with separate EMRs or choose a uniform platform?
So I want to be really careful and respectful about how I say this. The role of a specific EMR, to a large extent, has become commoditized. And what's really important are the digital tools that sit on top and the data that comes out of them. It would be hugely disruptive to go ahead and start tearing out EMRs and re-implementing. What we're going to do is part of the integration work will be to define common definitions of the most important metrics, particularly around safety and quality, and then have a layer on top. So Kent, I'm looking at you. This is where it's getting into deep weeds. You're the CTIS guy, but it's a layer that sits on top of the EMR that allows us to pull data that has a common fact base so that we can function as one system. There are very rare instances, the geographies are relatively separate, where patients are going to flow back and forth. And in that circumstance, we'll have tools to make sure that those special patients get really good and safe care. So I hope that answers the question, but I think that the future is really around that next layer up and the digital tools that support smart clinical practice. And those can be in common.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Well said. And just for the group, we're currently doing exactly what Mark described as we bring My Health Plus to Nevada. So we're not changing out the EMR, we're creating that layer so that it can work there just as it does here in Utah. Okay, so a question from Dave Shuey. Caregivers are tired. Caregivers feel underappreciated and in some cases leaving the company. What are we planning to do for employee retention?
Well, I believe I've begun to address this. So we will remain competitive with compensation and benefits. We'll try and recognize people on a day-by-day basis. We would like to make this such an attractive place that no one ever leaves. And by the way, I am not diminishing the impact of turnover. We're functioning at about half of the national turnover. So there's no declaration of victory here, but we are trying our best, and I think we're having relatively good success. I will say the most highly engaged teams that are led by the most skillful leaders, we can see statistically that retention, satisfaction, burnout tracks with the success of the local leader. So you heard from Jennifer earlier, that kind of leadership leads to people wanting to stick around. And so it's their connection to purpose is emphasized on a daily basis. So I and we are going to pull every lever we can at a macro level. Magic is at the local level. And as much as I care about you, and I'll round and I'll visit, and my team will round and we'll visit, it's the local leader who makes people's day or disappoints them. Happily at Intermountain, it's more the former than the latter.
Mark, love that. And I know it's a theme we'll talk more about as we go through the merger. You know, this sense of the enterprise is really here. The system is here to support frontlines everywhere in the regions in driving all we do for our communities. Just a few minutes left, Mark. A question from Robin Kingery.
Yes.
How long do you anticipate we can hold up during the current waves and what may come ahead of us with the pandemic?
I know, Robin, that we're all going to do the best we can all the way through. I think we've all become amateur epidemiologists and virologists, and fortunately at Intermountain, we've got some real experts, and we're hoping we're a couple weeks away from the peak of the Omicron surge, and we don't know what's on the back end of it. I think we're all hopeful that things are really going to settle down. What I will tell you is that we need to continue to look critically about at ourselves, how do we practice? Is there work that we're doing that is not necessary work? Are there ways that we can free people up to make things easier to do the right thing? And we've seen a lot of that over the last couple of years, and we need to see more of it. So that's as candid an answer as I can provide you. And I will just take one more moment. I can't change the pandemic. I can't change the economy. I can't change the global supply chain. What I can do is I can use all of our resources available to help support you. And I can say you with candor, I hear you, I see you, we're listening to you, we're responding to you, and maybe most importantly, I admire who you are and what you're doing and the reasons why you're doing it. So thank you.
Mark, thank you. And I'm going to combine two questions here in efficiency's sake around the merger. Part one from JD Bowman. JD asks, in what way specifically will the SCL merger address the quality, accessibility and affordability of healthcare in the Intermountain West? And then part B, Mark, if it's okay, Kirk Calder asks, related to the Sanford Health merger, which did not move forward, any chance that that may resume at some point?
Great question. I'll take the second part first. It's easier. We have warm relationships with Sanford. There are no current plans to work with them, but we're open in the future. They are a fundamentally good organization. They hit really a rough patch with their CEO's departure, and anyhow, they did what they needed to do. But these are good people serving a great part of the country, and who knows what the future will bring. So I'd say the biggest Intermountain is not like a knight on a white horse who's riding into Montana and Colorado. SCL Health is a great system, and we are working with a spectacular group of people who are getting great results and careful stewards of resources good to their community. What they haven't done yet, and they have a stated desire to do, is to get on that population health track. And we will help them with that, because that's actually something that we're uniquely good at Intermountain. So as we learn how they run rural hospitals in Montana, and there's probably something for us to learn there, they're going to learn for us how they transition from taking care of people when they're sick, primarily, to hopefully keeping people well and making that a sustainable proposition. And what I heard yesterday from their team is they are super excited about that, and they're open-hearted and eager.
Thank you, Mark. Great note to end on. We're out of time, unfortunately. We could be here all morning. There are so many questions. I will just note as I go through them, a lot of these are questions we're addressing or will address in other channels, and we'll keep addressing them as you keep them coming. Thanks again, Mark. Thanks, Jen and Kent, for joining us, for sharing your stories. And Mark, I just want to note, you addressed some pretty tough headwinds and crosswinds, but I think you also spoke really well to the tailwinds, many of our own making, that really give us incredible hope for the year ahead. So thanks to everybody. We'll share this recording in Lead Informed and Caregiver Brief, and please encourage colleagues and teams to watch it if they didn't get to join us this morning.
Hey, Kevin, can I add just one more thing?
Please, yeah.
So this is the first year that we've gone from the thank you payment to a true incentive that's based on the performance of the organization. Thanks to all of you. That's looking better than it has ever been. And so when that happens, the money is important, obviously. It's symbolic of your contribution to the success of the organization. You are driving that. And it makes sense that you can feel that in different ways too. So I just want to say thank you all for being exactly who you are. Keep asking the hard questions, keep innovating, and keep being positive.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Mark. And thanks, everyone. Have a great day.